Well then, let's not waste any more time. Welcome back, everyone, for another art stream, probably a shorter one than usual. I am pretty eepy in technical terms, and yeah. So I don't know for how long I will be going on for, but we will nonetheless try to get a little bit more progress on for one thing, updating our Baldur's Gate 3 thumbnail. Mainly the thing that needs to be done here is updating the clothing for our Tav, and then replacing Gale with Lae'zel. Sorry, Gale, but you did get swapped out. Don't really need to double stack wizards, especially not in the early game. Not really that viable of a strategy. For that purpose, I have taken some screenshots already here, so we have ample reference material. And then, if we have time beyond that, I may also want to continue some work here on the emotes, though... to be honest, that seems a bit unlikely, because that would require actual thinking, creative thinking, and decision making on my part, which I'm currently not that predisposed towards in my current condition. But yes, a few things, though. For one, if anyone's watching, I would be curious to see what my audio quality is right now, because I am currently rocking a slightly different setup. Mainly, I've kind of given up on my previous microphone stand, because that thing has been dying for quite a while now, and it's finally reached a point where I am thinking, okay, I think I should grant it its request. So right now I'm just basically resting the microphone on the desk, which is kind of what it was designed for to begin with, but that does mean it's further away from my mouth than it usually is, so we'll see. Yeah, let's just, oh, and also, for those on the Discord, they may be able to see that I've done a bit of a deviation today with the notification. Usually I always give a notification 30 minutes before going live. This time I went down to 20. For one, because I didn't really have that much time to prepare. For two, because I wanted to experiment with that regardless. Yeah. Okay. First things first. If we go to the minis, currently all the shadows of the minis are together. We need to kind of separate them, or at the very least, Gale's shadow. Hello, Euler. Nice to have you here. Well, mixed. It's obviously, I didn't make the stream on Monday, and then also didn't make the stream on Tuesday that I said I was going to defer the Monday stream towards, because I've been, as I've been alluding to, I've been kind of embroiled in the joys and wonders of our country's wonderful bureaucracy. A saga which isn't over yet, but yeah. Basically trying to get a new, not passport, a new, the personal ID. Oh, this is the wrong tool. But you in particular might like what we have in store today, since we are going to be replacing in the thumbnail Gale with Lae'zel, so... Huh? Why is it not... Oh, don't tell me there's something funky going on with the... Oh, no. Okay, great. Something funky going on with the graphics tablet. Wacom tablet properties. Okay, but it is connected. So is it something funky going on with Krita then? Okay. In that case, let me quickly close this. And then reopen, and hopefully that'll do it. Yeah, though honestly, I can't really, if I'm being entirely truthful, I can't really blame the bureaucracy itself that much. It's mostly just the biggest headache I've had thus far is with for one, my own moth-brainedness, and for two, just the opening times sometimes can be a bit funky. But, alright, so... Okay, now it does indeed work. Wonderful. And so this is Gale Shadow. And then let's put that right here in the Gale thingy. There we go. And then there should actually still be, yeah, here, there's still a early Lae'zel sketch surviving here. Though, is that to scale? Vaguely. So this would be... Lae'zel. There we go. And then we do still have this older sketch here that I'm probably gonna adapt a little bit, but mostly we're gonna have to go for a new sketch. A transform mask. Oh, layer is locked. And transform mask. There we go. Then, oh right, because didn't I? Oh, it's already invisible. Transform mask that's currently active on that thingy. There we go. And then here, base, copy, paste. Wait, what the hell? Oh. Huh? Did I think I forgot to copy the group here and then paste that in here. That should, yeah, there we go. And then with this base, I can already kind of use that to, if all of them have the same size base, I can kind of ensure they're more or less all working on the same scale. More or less. Oh, come on. No, don't want this, want this. And this. Okay, the armor is obviously pretty complex, but actually maybe not that difficult to simplify. I mean, at least not that much more difficult than Shadowheart's armor. So... let's go. So I think we're gonna preserve the basic shape, I guess, of the original, and Lae'zel does have pretty big ears, so since we exaggerated the ears on the other characters, I think we should probably also exaggerate hers even further. Something like this, maybe? Well, we'll see. And then... oop, that's... that's quite asymmetrical. And then her hair doesn't actually go that far below her neck. So somewhere like here, I'd say. And then she has... How does that work? Trying to... It's not that her hair is in a bun, but it does... Well, actually, I'm not so sure. Do I need to get even more reference material here? Because it does look like it's kind of tied together here, but I don't really understand how. Well, in the meantime, the rest of the body and most importantly, or I guess not most importantly, but pertaining to the body, the armor. Okay, so, I think most of the cuirass or chest plate is probably going to be covered by the hair in these proportions, so we maybe don't have to worry about that one as much. So that would be kind of like here-ish. And then there's chainmail, or I guess, no, not really chainmail, scale mail, going down here. And then you have these, I forget the term, but, the hip armor, which is kind of segmented like that. How would I, oh god, maybe something like this. And then have the other thing, which I don't know the term for, but basically like these Roman, like the thing the skirts of Roman legionaries have, these leather straps kind of down there. And then the arms. That's kind of... Because I am kind of liking this pose of having both arms sort of here and gripping like the sword by her side. But that can be pretty hard to properly convey. Ooh, that's nice. I hear Baldur's Gate 3 has some pretty good multiplayer features. So that's really nice to hear. Yeah, I will admit I am also kind of anxious to get back into the game, especially now that it runs properly, thank the gods. So, could do something like this, but it looks kind of weird. It does. What other poses could you do with like a long claymore? Wait, no, it's more like a greatsword. Yeah, greatsword. It did also, since it wouldn't make sense for us to properly represent the demonic greatsword she's currently rocking. I did also grab a reference for that. So obviously in the inventory screen she's holding it in a very neutral pose, which for one is kind of not very easy to represent facing the back, and it was obviously not really dynamic enough for our purposes. Thinking like raising it above your head doesn't work in the chibi art style because the head is so big compared to the length of the arms. You could go for like a like this. Oh. No. Does kind of have to be a pose like in the original sketch. It really is like the most doable one. Like this, maybe? Still not too happy about it. Because, yeah, this arm would just be way too long. And there isn't really that much of a good way to bring this closer with these kinds of proportions. You could... Could also just kind of give up on the idea of having both hands on the sword, which does really free up, which does make it a lot easier, but at the same time, I would kind of like it if both hands were on the sword to kind of sell the idea that it's, you know, a great sword. No, I did finish all of the other, I started them on stream, but I finished them off stream, so that's something I did on my own time. Yeah, I am, also, yeah, I am pretty happy with especially how Shadowheart turned out. Pretty challenging to simplify the design, that pretty complex armor design, but it worked out a lot better than I expected. Also helps that it's the last one I worked on, I think. Actually, I think for the line art I went from right to left, but then for the color I went left to right. doesn't quite work. Which is odd because it did kind of for the sketch. So if I just try to follow this more closely. Then how would you... This one's like the... How would you look... position like the cross guard? Guess it doesn't really matter that much. Like this. Honestly, that works. Yeah, honestly, why not? And then, yeah, I do think I need to lose the shoulder here because otherwise, I mean, this is already pretty hard to, like, sell as a distance arm, like one of these short arms could cover, but, maybe that's the problem. Maybe I need to, like, angle her chibi even more, just commit to that idea. Maybe that is it. Like, deliberately lean into the idea that this is more seen from an angle. So, this one being in front, this one being the back. Could connect the right shoulder a little further to the back, make it seem like she's... Ah, yeah, exactly, yeah, that's... Guess I arrived at that solution, yeah, but that is the solution I also just arrived at, So, in my book, good suggestion, if only I were more attentive. And then can make like deliberately this part more like turned like so, and then if we move this part even further here. Does kind of get into conflict with the hair. But we could further shorten that, something like this. Something like this. Yeah. Yes, this is so much better. And then, I am kind of lacking information on how these side armor bits look from the side, but I guess I can kind of infer that information. Something like this, maybe? I don't know. And then, like so. Yeah, that looks good. That looks good. Oh, I definitely, no, I do like suggestions, especially since I would, like, personally, I mean, if I'm streaming, I think it's a great source of new ideas, and if I, don't feel like a suggestion would work, I definitely am just going to say, ah, okay, so then I'm not going to have to follow that one. Yeah, so I definitely appreciate suggestions, in the art streams, that is. During gameplay, I'm more of a let me figure it out myself, but, type of person, but, during art, I definitely do appreciate them, because oftentimes I am definitely the kind of person who has, like, very specific ideas about how a piece should look, but I find oftentimes, even if I don't end up liking a suggestion in specifics, it often gets me thinking in a direction that I hadn't before, and then something new gets synthesized from, like, you know, the suggestion, and then my, like, using it as a springboard to getting, like, a new idea. But yeah, I mean, in this case, we did arrive at the same conclusion, and we were definitely right. This looks a lot better. And then I'm thinking whether we should angle her head as well. But honestly, I'm thinking we're keeping... I like the idea of the head looking straight ahead while the body is angled. Though one thing we do kind of have to is move the head a little bit, I feel. I think it should be more like here-ish, if we follow like the center of the spine, right? Although, hard to say. Yeah, no, a little bit. There we go. And then... So... I don't know why, but I always feel like when I'm in the sketch phase, that the minis look a little bit too big for the base, but I think that's just because there's a lot of stuff here. In the imprecisions of the sketch, there's a lot of stuff that's kind of bloating the overall volume of the figure. I mean, the legs are a bit thicker than on the other minis right now, so let me actually, as we get into more detailed work, let me decrease the size of our brush and then shave off a bit of girth from the frog legs. But not that much. I mean, she is a fighter after all. And then... I'm thinking, do we want to go for a bit more of a unified look here? Or do we actually lean into these sort of crevices, because that would make sense for the chainmail to be here. So yeah, actually let's leave it like this for now. And now the head. I'm still not entirely sure what's going on here. to the point where I am kind of tempted to just really quickly fire up the game again and get a better look. So, I think we can do it without. So, we do see like a sort of coalescence here of the hair. And then there's obviously also that part, especially I'm kind of not sure on how we're gonna represent all the little braids she has in her hair, which I do really love that detail, but that's going to be really tough to represent. We may just have to drop that because we did also remove a bunch of detail from Shadowheart's hair in similar fashion. She does have pretty straight hair down here. Not entirely that straight. It's kind of so. And then the ears. I think we can angle them further because that's kind of the thing that makes her ears unique, that they're not only pointed, they also kind of bend like this. Oh yeah, that's a good point. Does feel like it wants the head to be kind of, the composition does kind of want the head to be angled as well. Though, if that were the case, I feel like the pose would be a lot less dynamic than it is right now. Though, I feel like we could do something here by having the shoulder kind of push the hair aside like this. Kind of create the sense that the like hair is fallen unevenly on the uneven shoulders, though not so sure about how it looks in practice. So this ear is kind of feels out of place a little bit. Should definitely decrease the size like a little bit, but not entirely. I do still want the ears to be on the whole noticeably bigger than on the other characters, since that's also what it's like, you know, in the regular proportions. And looking at her from the back, that is kind of one of the most identifiable features about her. Yeah, something like this maybe. And then let's get further into the weeds with some line work. Oh, if only I could recall what thickness exactly I used for the other line art, but I think 7 pixels might be correct, so I'm just gonna stick with that for now. So, first things first, we want to like outline main shape of the body. Like if the thing is here, and then yeah, something like that. I think. This is kind of like this question mark. Yeah, vaguely. And then, hold on, I am going to have to look at reference images for this again, because does her armor have, like, gems? Really? Because one really interesting detail about her armor, obviously, are the, like, gems that are set into, like, key parts of the armor, like, on the shoulder, but I don't think those are really represented. I don't really think there's one here that we could put there. Though there is, I think, one... well, not... There's, like, small ones on the shoulder. But I do think we could represent that slightly. By just having, like, here... Gemstone. And then, sure, whatever. Let's put one here as well, no matter how accurate that may be. And then, let's see, oh, right, that's kind of the... She has, like, scale mail... almost like a scale mail t-shirt that covers... like half of the upper arm, but then is kind of sleeveless or like with a leather, like a sort of leather guard that covers like half of the lower hand. Nope. So I think I'm just gonna have like the male color here and then leave the arm green. Like so. And then, okay, this is gonna be a bit challenging. The leather straps. I think we're just gonna go for like 3 leather straps like this. The central one going kind of deeper like that. Yeah, I think that's good. And then... this should all be in alignment. like that maybe, and then on the front here. Yeah, I'm liking this. And then the sword, What do we have there? So it's like, well, I mean, it is basically just a very standard greatsword. Not that much special about it, but I do think we want to kind of make the angle here a bit more specific. Or a bit more, not vertical. Wait, no, vertical, that's the word. I always confuse them. Diagonal and vertical. Yeah, we want less diagonal, more vertical. Maybe, hold on, maybe I should go back to the sketch for this for a moment. So, essentially this is like the through line. Well, maybe that's too extreme. Or like this. Yeah, something like this, maybe. Like this, yeah. So that would mean the pommel is like here. There we go. Yeah, this I think is pretty good. And, hold on, the pommel does actually have to go further in that direction, but, yeah, something like this. Let me flip that canvas again. Yeah, this looks good. Yeah. But hold on. First things first, I do have to quickly go to the toilet. I'll be right back. I have returned. There we go. And then... If we slightly adjust this, switch brush. Yeah, something like that. And then, obviously, question is gonna be, how exactly do we want to follow the particular blade profile of this sword with this big empty space here? Go. And up. Yeah. Then it has these two little spikes here. And then past that, it does kind of continue pretty... If only I could see, like, the tip of the sword here. But yeah, it does more or less just kind of, at least I'm assuming, follow a very standard profile here, and then it terminates. Let me actually make this a little longer. And then the cavity here, it starts here, then it's like following the spikes, it's very briefly expanded here, then it goes a bit further, and then it terminates into like a regular tang. It's kind of funny because there is like very scarce examples of actual medieval swords doing something like this, where they have a hollowed out portion of the tang, but it's a very common thing in fantasy weapons, and honestly something I'm like, maybe it's because it's so common, but something I'm like oddly tolerant on when it comes to you know, creative liberties taken by fantasy sword designs, which I have opinions on, of course I do. Because, you know, I am always of like the function over form school of design, where I always prefer to see, you know, fantasy weapons that may be fantastical but are still designed purpose first, with like a clear, you know, understanding of how the material and in general, like the design styles of the weapon you're designing work. But this one, like this trope of having like a part of the tang or the entire tang of the sword being hollow, I don't know, I don't really mind it that much. Maybe because it does kind of follow basic design principles of a sword. Obviously, the point of a tang is a part of the sword where you do kind of remove a bit of material to prevent the profile to be too wide, and also to reduce the weight. So extending that into just straight up removing the material entirely in the tang is kind of, even though it's not really something that was done a lot in real swords, because obviously this adds like a massive point of failure. If this blade is gonna break, it's gonna break here. But I don't know, maybe it's also just because it's so often seen, and it is also, it does look pretty. That part is hard to deny. Actually, maybe I should actually, instead of, should I? I'm wondering right now if I should fully like draw out the tang, or if I should just settle for, instead of doing like this, just go with like one thicker black line, to kind of make it clear where the gap, which part is an actual gap and which part is just the tang. So like this. Yeah, I think this makes it clearer that this part is an actual, you know, part of the blade that's missing. And then, obviously another part is gonna be the flame effect. That part might be a bit of a headache. But I think I'm gonna focus on the other stuff first. Yeah, that is true. It's like, there are much worse things out there, and especially, it doesn't... It makes the blade less stable, but in, like, the actual usage of the thing, it's not like, having, like, 50 different spikes in the crossguard that are gonna cut you if you actually try to use it. Something like this isn't actually gonna, like, hinder you if you try to wield the blade, the greatsword, like you would wield a greatsword. Whereas, you know, having like a that's always my favorite, like the big like spike going down from the crossguard on like a symmetrical crossguard on both sides, which means that how you're gonna hold that thing. I mean, it obviously makes sense if you have like an asymmetrical crossguard having one side go down here for like a handguard, but if you have it on both sides, that's kind of... there are going to be problems there. Okay, so ears. That's kind of also another part about the ears. She does have these interesting, like almost like serrations on the ears. It's hard to see here, but something like this maybe. Hold on, if I remove the sketch part, yeah, that could work. Yeah, I mean, having like a lightly spiked pommel like this, I think makes sense. But yeah, like a big spike, that's gonna be... And the hair. Still kind of, kind of wondering how best to do that on this side, because what I kind of want to convey is the idea that the shoulder here is kind of pushing away the hair like this. So maybe something like this-ish. still doesn't look perfect, but who's got time for perfect at the end of the day? Hmm. Yeah, I think with a bit more work here to make it look cleaner, this could work. Yeah, I think like this is good. Mm-hmm. And then... No, the top of her head is pretty just round, of her hair, rather. Oh. Like, there are, like, irregularities here and here that, I don't really fully understand how they work. It's like... It's like this, almost. And then, yeah, again, something like... I think her hair is tied together here somehow, but I don't really know how exactly. If only... Obviously, if you look for reference images of her, you're mainly just gonna see her from the front. Okay. So she... Oh, is that... Hold on. Huh? Because this reference image paints a pretty different picture, because here you can clearly see that she has a bun, which I do remember her having, though I'm just wondering why that just... Or is this entire thing like the bun? Is that it? It's hard to tell. But yeah, okay, so she has like a... Yeah, I think it's just that this entire thing is actually the bun. Yeah. Okay, that changes things. How best, And fool me, I thought Shadowheart had the most complicated hair. Oh god, I don't even... Well, actually, I think Karlach's hair isn't that complicated from the back. It's mainly just the front that's very, complex there. Yeah, something like this, and then... Yeah, I had like the vague notion that there was a bun here, but I also didn't didn't fully remember. But I do really like, I mean, pretty much every every companion in Baldur's Gate has like really good hair with like a ton of attention to detail. But I think like her, Karlach's, well, with Karlach it's more the horns, although I think she also has like braids and these, I don't even know what the term is, like pearls basically here, and obviously a shadow heart. Yeah, I really like this look of the like hair that's mostly flat in a bun, but then you have these individual strands that are braided very irregularly with the pearls or beads, however you want to call it. They're kind of decorated there. Very much conveys that idea of like the of like a very proud martial look. It's practical and straightforward, but there's still this sense of pride and decoration there. Which makes sense since I forget exactly, and I guess maybe that's for the best, since it's definitely not something we've actually come across in the story, but if I recall correctly, she's actually pretty high ranking as far as Githyanki soldiers are concerned, right? I mean, her armor pretty much says as much as well. Mm. Hmm. Nope. Hmm. Any more like obviously seeing the hair straight from the front isn't that helpful, but like, yeah, I think it's basically something like this. And here, let me like add in a few like nods to these. Like something like this. And then the bun itself is like... something like this. I think. Yeah. Like she's balding. Yeah, probably because we didn't really give the hair the space it needs up here to kind of breathe. Yeah, I think we like need to expand it further here. It's too, because it was too closely... Also, hello, Stockler. It was like too close to the scalp, basically. That's just in general a mistake I tend to make a lot with hair. Was something I'm trying to get a bit better on, but just in general, I still have a pretty long way to go when it comes to drawing hair, but one of my most common mistakes is just drawing this, drawing it too close to the scalp. Whereas ideally, you know, hair, since the follicles point straight outwards from the scalp, ideally hair has quite a bit of volume that it takes up. Actually, that makes me think, are there any bald Githyanki? Or just Gith in general? Maybe. I think I saw like one image of like one Githyanki character from Baldur's Gate 3 that was balding. Or not balding, bald. Frog egg. Yeah, I think this looks pretty decent now. Here we probably need a bit more volume as well. There we go. And then, can't help but think that, like, this portion needs to get, like, a little bit more detailed, but how best to do that without, like, invoking the full... Because this is, like, a pretty complex thingy there. Hello, William. Thank you. We're currently working on our thumbnail for our currently ongoing, quite new series of Baldur's Gate 3 streams, which will continue on Saturday. The gimmick of the thumbnail kind of being that I have these minis here in front of the DM screen on the thumbnail, and I'm switching out the minis based on who's currently in the party. So now that we've advanced the story a little bit, we ended up switching out Gale with Lae'zel, so now we're updating the thumbnail to reflect that. Hold on, where is that? There we go. There we go. Yeah, this looks pretty decent now. This is Lae'zel line. And here, this part, thinking, even though it's pretty not really representative on how it looks on the actual armor, I'm thinking doing something like this, because even though it's not really that faithful to what's actually happening here, it's like it has the same basic idea, if nothing else. And then one more important thing I kind of want to get right with the armor, which isn't going to be represented in the thumbnail, not in the thumbnail, what am I saying? In the line art, but when it comes to shading, I kind of did the same here, where some of the finer textures I didn't include in the line art, but did kind of, to some extent, in the coloring. I kind of want to properly represent this very cool look she has on her armor with these organic lines, almost sort of like a... I guess you could almost call it an Art Nouveau, sort of... What's the opposite of engraving? Because with engraving, they'd be grooves, but they're actually... You know, it's, I guess it would be... like stamping, basically, is how you would get this effect with actual armor. You'd have the designs and you'd stamp out the metal so that it faces outwards. Ah yeah, same here, same here. It's funny, actually, it's gonna seem a bit random to have like minis here of, oh god, I always forget his name. Lokir Fellheart, right, from Warhammer Fantasy. But basically the reason I have some reference images of him here is because I was initially playing with the idea of having a more Mind Flayer or, you know, Cthulhu squid-like mask instead of my usual one in the thumbnail. Didn't really end up going with it, but I might still have a sort of Illithid-looking mask laying on the table somewhere or something similar, and I think as far as like squid masks are concerned, Lokir Fellheart's is one of the best examples of having this, you know, Mind Flayer similar look, but still keeping it stylized and mask-like. But yeah, funnily enough, actually the CRPG I played right before Baldur's Gate, not on stream but on my own time, was Rogue Trader, the Owlcat Warhammer CRPG. Still haven't finished it, and probably won't for the foreseeable future, since I can only do one CRPG at the time, and that's gonna be Baldur's Gate for now. But I definitely want to, because that's a great game. And genuinely, in my opinion, I haven't played that many CRPGs, but I also haven't played that few. And of the ones I've played, the best combat system. Rogue Trader. Definitely not balanced, but so much fun. Like, broken in the best way. Yeah, Abelard, my beloved. I love Abelard. He's been in my. I don't think there's been like a single instance through my entire course of the game where he hasn't been in my party. It's just because I had my Rogue Trader as nobleman, or I guess noblewoman officer. So my dedicated strat was always going with the you serve me on Abelard, and then using him as like the dedicated bodyguard slash, you know, officer person for my Rogue Trader, because my setup was basically 3 officers and like 3 people who actually do stuff in my party, having like 3 officers with my Rogue Trader, Cassia, and Jay, and then 3 other people who actually, you know, attacked on their turns. While the officers just do stuff to boost the other ones. I think we're good here on the line art now, so let me get the funky color here so we can make sure not to miss anything. So this would be Lae'zel volume. Oop. Right, X was swapping, which I found out recently, and I wish I had earlier, because having an actual button to swap the primary and secondary color is very helpful. Well, then, bon appetit to you, and thank you. I hope I will have good luck with the drawing. I mean, it's coming along pretty nicely. So, take care. I did some less than clean work here on the line art, I'm just noticing. But honestly, I think that's the kind of stuff we can keep without too much problems. I mean, in the end, this, especially with the hair, it's gonna be like black line art on dark brown color, so if there are some impurities in the line art in that region, I think it won't be that big of a deal. Nah, we can do that later, maybe cleaning up the line art on the legs a little. There we go. Okay, I think we've covered everything, so let me get rid of that. And then we can lock the opacity on this, and now we can just kind of have fun. So first, ooh, this is pretty dark. Hold on. Is this better? A little. Oh, hold on, I missed a spot there. Oh, missed quite a few spots there. There we go. Then this is going to be pretty important, getting a right color. It's going to be pretty difficult getting a proper color for like the skin in general, but I don't think... Yeah, hold on, let me just get a new reference image that's gonna show Lae'zel in like some pretty neutral light, like this one. Copy image. Oop, sorry, I had to do that. Yeah, this one, and then we can just kind of... This looks good. Maybe we can go a bit greener. Hold on, how does this look? Well, I can't really make a judgment there, but that's, I guess kind of... Oh, this is orange? Okay. Then let me just shift this. Hold on. These are all kind of orange. God damn you, color blindness. This seems hard to believe, frankly. Wait, is this thing correctly calibrated? What? This is green. Huh? Oh well, I guess... Well, we can always defer that to some other time. First up, let's try and get that armor. This isn't the best color for this. Can I do better? Yeah, maybe this. Hello, Pikusan. Welcome in. As you can see, we're well on our way on working on Lae'zel here, which is going to be the main thing we want changed from our original, our previous thumbnail. Second one is going to be adjusting the clothing on our Tav, which we kept pretty nondescript for now, but I do think we're gonna change them to reflect the, you know, default garbs a bit more. And then, for this portion with the mail, or I guess scale mail. How does this tone compare to... Well, maybe. Yeah, actually, hold on. This works pretty well. And then... the leather... And then the legs. That's kind of an interesting question, because part of the legs are really just bare skin, but there are also quite a few leather straps there. And then obviously there's the greaves at the bottom, but I don't really feel like representing that all too faithfully. I think for now I'm just gonna go with, you know, the basic skin tone, and then maybe have like a few like leather colored stripes there to represent the straps. Yeah, this is coming along pretty nicely. Especially once we add, do the same thing we did for Shadowheart, like adding in the highlights and stuff. Oh, and then of course, for Gore, forgot to put in the actual flaming effect on the sword, which I'm thinking, should we separate that from the rest of the... We might want to separate that from the rest of the mini if we ever switch out the sword to one that isn't on fire, which probably isn't going to happen anytime soon, since this is a really good sword for where we are in the game, but well, we'll see. And then, of course, hold on. Is there anywhere... Might just have to do this by eye. So, the gemstones on her armor, what color are they exactly? They're like a shade of red, like rubies, basically. But like a very, very deep dark red. Like, probably even deeper than this, but we're gonna go for this color for now because of clarity. Because if we make it any darker than this, it's not really gonna be that visible. Let me also kind of widen this a little bit. Kind of thinning the line out there to give more space to the color. There we go. And then having sort of leather straps here. And then also, well, maybe some like spotting, but actually her skin. Oh, well, if only I could have like a clear look on her arms, because the legs and ears from the back are pretty spot free. Yeah, I think it's mostly just the spots are actually pretty exclusive to the face, so let's keep them there. Then let's add some add some light like leather here by the arms. Okay. And now, for the shading. Like a light leather tone here. To kind of, I think we can go even lighter. There we go. This is like the lightest the armor gets. And then, okay. How do I best convey these Art Nouveau stampings on the armor with as few lines as possible? Hello, Moon. As you can see, we're well underway with our endeavor of doing a mini of Lae'zel. Slay the Spire. I haven't really played that much of the first game either, but that sounds fun. Definitely want to at some point play more of that. I guess probably the first game. Yeah, actually, I guess I can just go ahead and ask you. Do you think Slay the Spire, you should play the first game before the second game, or is it more of a you know, does it not really matter that much if you... Oh yeah, okay. Then I might actually jump straight to the second one. Because I didn't really play that much. I played the first one a bit, but not that much. Okay, it's gonna be... I'm going to guess you're still trying to slay the spire. Yeah. Actually, hold on. Let me undo all of that. I think what would be better is if I add like the general lighting, the general shine of the armor first, and then on top of that we kind of go in for the detailing of the like stamping or whatever you might call it. Is this the correct? Oh, no, that's not the correct brush. This is. There we go. This part's gonna be pretty illuminated. This part's also gonna be pretty. Illuminated. No. Small parts here. Then like the edges here. And then the darker parts of the armor, they do get pretty dark. No, that's not the right hue. Something like this, maybe. No, it's too, like, brownish. Let me just... Actually, no, hold on. According to this, it is pretty colorless. Yeah, no, hold on, this is better. I feel like sometimes this color selector is lying to me. Maybe that's just... maybe it's just the paranoia speaking, but I don't know. Oh yeah, good point. Let me just... Oh. Interesting, that didn't show up on the... Usually the redeems, like, show up, or maybe I'm just misremembering, but I think the, like, point redeems used to show up on the streamer bot thing, but maybe they didn't, I don't know. There we go. Then honestly... This really doesn't need that much more addition anymore. Just some very light sort of gestures at this sort of patterning. Too thick. Something like this. Something like this. Actually, hold on, I don't really like this all that much. Main thing is, how does it look from a distance, but even then, I don't really like the look. I mean... We could just leave it like this, I think that's fine too, honestly. Especially if we do actually commit to adding a bit more detail to the scale mail here. So that would be what? Hmm. Something like this, basically. Hmm. Yeah, but it needs to be stronger. Yeah, I mean, not from like the full zoomed out thingy, but with Shadowheart here, you do kind of, you don't really notice it individually, but you do kind of get a bit more sense of the texture here. See, if you zoom out, you do kind of get the sense that this is male. Yeah, something like this. Yeah, I mean, that's also true, but I do definitely want to keep in mind the fact that a lot of detail is going to be lost from like a thumbnail view, but I don't really want to use that as an excuse to get that sloppy, if that makes any sense. So I do want to keep it very readable, even from a very zoomed out view, but I do still want to have those little details here and there, to reward those that pay a closer attention, I guess. Or just, you know, because it's nice to have. There we go. Tips here need some light touch-ups. There we go. And then, her hair really isn't that glossy, but I still want like a brighter highlight color like this to go in here and sort of do a bit of work here. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And then I think one big thing, and still, is this orange? Is this really orange? Because it looks so green to me. And also I got it from, you know, this image, which that has to be green. It's such a neutral light, but for some reason this tells me it's orange, which I'm trusting less and less. I don't know. Yeah, they do. Like, very much a design that's difficult to make that appealing, but they did, like, do, they poured, like, with like a monumentous effort, they pulled it off in Baldur's Gate. Like the giths actually look pretty good there, which you can tell a lot of effort went into, because if you compare it with like gith official artwork or just artwork in general, you can definitely tell there's a pre and post Baldur's Gate 3 era with the gith artwork you see, both official and fan. Hmm. I wanted to add more shading to the skin, but honestly, the more I think about it, might actually be better if we leave it like this, a bit more of a flat color that makes it more easily readable and kind of differentiates it from the clothing as well. I mean, we did the same for Shadowheart, and the other characters too, though the clothing is also flatter. I mean, they kind of did to some extent. They definitely gave them a facelift. I think that much is pretty fair to say. Okay, and now the sword. Standard, I think we can just go ahead and use the leather color here for the grip. Then the pommel, like a blue, metallic blue. Then a very warm gold for the crossguard. A bluish metallic hue, if you look at this. It's definitely a pretty bluish. I mean, okay, so the stuff around here is more brown, but this does have a pretty bluish metallic hue. I mean, most metal has a bluish tint to it. Like the armor here, there's definitely bluish tint going on. Yes, obviously it's primarily gray, but gray with a bluish tint. So there's like some gold elements in the blade itself. I'm kind of debating how much we want to represent that. I think I'm just gonna, like, even though it's not really representative with how the sword actually looks, I'm just gonna put, like, in the tang some bit gold. And then, there's, like, the runes here, but I'm not gonna do all of that. I'm just... Right, the flames of the sword. We see it here pretty well. It's like clouds of flame that basically surround the sword, but I might honestly just say screw that and go for like a more standard flame look. Let's sketch this out on a separate layer first. So, oh. No. Hmm. Something like this. Yeah, honestly, yeah, that was the original sketch, but seeing as how, let's be honest, this is going to be Lae'zel's weapon for, like, the foreseeable future, um, at this point in the game, I thought, sure, why the hell not? Let's represent it, and also, just because it's also visually more, interesting having the fire. I mean, shape-wise, obviously the silver, the like Githyanki sword is more unique, but having an actual like flaming sword from a distance is probably going to be more interesting, is my thinking at the moment at least. Hmm. Just because I wanted something to represent his status as a necromancer. I sure as hell wasn't gonna give him the dopey ass shield he's currently wearing, because that looks very silly. Hmm. Like this? Nah. That looks good. Yeah. So if we want to actually put this as line art, would make most sense probably to put this behind or in front? Behind or in front? Actually, let's go with in front, because that way we can have the light of the... Wait, it's the same layer. We can have the blade itself be more affected by the light. Ooh. Shansung. I don't think I'm familiar with that character. Right. I can't. Who's the name sounded kind of familiar to the point where, but I think that's just because that's the most Mortal Kombat ass name I've ever heard. I think that's why my mind went to Mortal Kombat, but I don't think I actually know the character. Hold on, let me just... Oh, that guy. Right. Well, I mean, green lighting and stuff is just very necromancer coded in general, so I think we're safe. Maybe something like this. Yeah, that looks good-ish. Let's get the purple back here. Maybe let's go with this one instead. Mm-hmm. And then colors for the flame. Like a very bright yellow. And then like a very bright orange. And then there isn't that much white here in the flame, but still a bit. I mean, we do definitely want to represent that, since flames are in fact... Oh, that's not what I wanted. Flames are in fact bright. And then I think I'm gonna make the outline like something like this. No. Better. Better. Yeah, something like this, I think. Maybe one like this. How have I been doing lately? Mostly okay, just, as I've alluded on the Discord, I've had to go through bit of, a bit of the wonders, of bureaucracy, trying to get a personal ID renewed, basically, which is turning out to be a bit more of an odyssey than I had anticipated. So that was kind of the cause of me not making stream on Monday, and then on Tuesday it was mostly because, long story short, I just kind of forgot, I must admit. I should just in general stop promising rescheduled streams. I never succeed in actually incorporating them into my schedule. But yeah, other than that, I'm doing pretty well. I was feeling a little under the weather today at the beginning of stream, but that's mostly cleared up. Even so, I'm probably not going to go for that much longer. I'm still pretty tired. But I can definitely finish up Lae'zel, and then probably also do a little bit of work on our Tav. Right, what was it that I wanted to... Oh yeah, hold on, first let me group the flaming stuff of the sword here, and then I just want to add like a very slight... Hold on. Properties, this is an addition layer, and then I'm just gonna go like, is this, more like this, is this an addition layer now? Properties, addition, yes. And then right, well, he's currently not in our party, meaning that we don't have to worry about him for our for the thumbnail on Saturday, but I am kind of thinking that we could maybe swap out Astarion with Will, because there would be definitely some advantages having a third caster in the party, even if it's just, you know, a warlock. Not really much of a utility caster, but that's obviously our Tav's job, which, speaking of, I am kind of currently considering renaming him a little bit, but we'll see about that. Right, so that would be flame. There we go. Right, that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, my main thing for why Will might be useful, but that's, I think, because I'm still used to how Rogue Trader does it, is because I thought we currently don't have anyone in the party with high charisma. But since, right, in Baldur's Gate, it's if you're in dialogue and you're trying to go for something like persuasion, you know, all the social skills, it only matters what your, like, character who's currently in the conversation, meaning in 99% of the cases, your Tav, only their charisma matters in that situation, right? It doesn't take like the highest perception, highest deception or persuasion of the entire thingy. Well, my thinking was that it sounds a bit too bougie for what our character is supposed to be. I kind of want him to it's kind of a bit long-winded and like upper class for what I want the character to be. So I'm kind of thinking about names that are kind of similar in vibe, but more, you know, the idea that this isn't someone who comes from money or wealth. Also, in addition, I thought Mortimer was maybe a bit too on the nose. But all that aside, I think I'm liking this on Lae'zel. I think she's good like this. Obviously we still have to give her a shadow. But aside from that, I think let's move on actually to our Tav. So my current thinking was something like, still debating on the surname, or first name. I always confuse the terms. The first name, something like Simon or Edgar, and then for the actually surname, my current candidate is Candlewax. So Simon Candlewax or Edgar Candlewax. Kind of still having that more, you know, occultish, macabre sort of vibe there, but not as, what's the word? Yeah, grandiose, I guess, as Gloomwood. And kind of underscoring the idea that, you know, this is someone who doesn't really come from anything. Send, bring to front. So Hazel obviously still needs her shadow, but I think for now I'm gonna... Yeah, I was probably thinking so too. So currently my money's on Simon. Because it's also... what I kind of wanted is like a semi-Germanic first name to mirror, or I guess reference slightly Victor, you know, Victor Frankenstein. But then with a less, because, you know, Victor Frankenstein, obviously a baron, so a less ostentatious surname than Frankenstein. Or Gloomwood, I guess, in this case. Okay, so... I'm currently debating if I even want to update the line art all that much, or if I'm just gonna go do the changes in the volume. Yeah, honestly, let's keep the changes contained-ish for now. I need to kind of get like a good color from this. Actually, yeah, hold on, let me duplicate this in case we don't like our changes. We can just yeah, does need to be a bit lighter. Something like this, maybe. Oh, and then also I'm realizing we did change the hair to be more dark with white streaks instead of the other way around, so we should probably change that as well. And then honestly, I think the... That's funny. That's a funny... Removing his shadow, that is kind of... I mean, I don't think it's like that in D&D, but I like the way you think. Is that a thing with Dampirs? Or vampires? Still don't... Well, actually... Astarion isn't a Dampira, he's an actual vampire spawn, just, you know... one that's kind of operating under unusual rules because of the worm. Oh, I really wish I could get a more distinct color profile here, but I guess I'll have to make do. Well, traditional lore, especially Bram Stoker's Dracula, since vampires cast no shadows or reflections due to lacking a soul, modern interpretations often ignore this for cinematic effect. Depicted, a vampire's shadow may be distorted, independent, or absent, symbolizing their soulless nature, status as a ghost in the flesh, right? Which is interesting, because you'd think that that's the same reason they don't have a reflection. But no, the reason they don't reflect in mirrors is because mirrors used to contain silver. Though, I guess, could be that sources vary on that. Maybe some also say that it's because of the soullessness. Wouldn't surprise me, at least. But I do know that one of the big reasons is just because mirrors used to have silver in them. There we go, and then nope. There we go. That doesn't really look that great. No, that's better. I think I am. Or maybe we can do something fancier, but yeah, I do kind of... I definitely want to test it out. Hold on. Since I'm gonna differentiate the shadows anyways at some point, let me just... Styrian. There you are. Let's just... I mean, currently it's gonna be hard to contrast since Lae'zel doesn't have a shadow yet anyways. But yeah, I definitely want to see how it looks, because that would be a really funny detail. Could also make like the shadow, as the thing said, like with a distorted shadow. Okay. Don't let Euler hear you say that. Oh, that's way too dark. Am I... Oh, no, okay. Pen pressure still works. Yeah, I may not be that much of an expert on them yet, but the Gith do seem like the type of people who make very credible threats. So definitely ones that shouldn't be taken too lightly. Okay, and then just the hair. which definitely we need to change now that the body is lighter. The hair then in turn needs to be darker to contrast nicely again. So I'm gonna go with like this. I'm just gonna paint over like a lot of this lighter stuff. Alright, and then we did also have some parts that were actually part of the line art, which at this point we should probably switch back to being properly black again. There we go. Yeah. Definitely not to be messed with. If you know what's good for you, which, to be fair, most adventuring parties definitely don't know. Because, I mean, you should probably also don't mess with, like, liches or mind flayers or hags or name a, you know, basically name a D&D BBEG here. If you know what's good for you, but that's not gonna stop, your average murder hobo polycule parentheses D&D party. Yeah. Hold on. I think I'm just gonna go, like, basically replace all of the hair with, like, darker color. And then even this is, like, still a bit too light. Let's go. Yeah, honestly, that's basically just go and copy Shadowheart's hair color. Fellow goth. Mm-hmm. Man, if only... only I wasn't colorblind. But oh well. That looks a bit too... That looks a bit too regular. And orderly. That's, I guess it's a bit overrepresented here, but it's basically just, I noticed that a lot of in the inventory screen there's basically a blue light here, which creates, because there's a warm light coming from here, and then a smaller point light coming from here, which does very nicely light the characters, so I kind of wanted to represent that a bit, though I haven't been really consistent with it. I did feature it slightly on Shadowheart, Gale, and Artav, though here a bit to a fault, I'm noticing. Should probably go for like this color more. Just because, you know, having some 2-point lighting is a nice bit of complex, like, not necessarily complexity, but more like, what's the word? It's a nice bit of dynamicism in the lighting that I usually don't really have in my own work, so I was more than happy to just steal the one that was already there. Hmm. Still feel like I need to get kind of something I need to improve with, like the placement of the white streaks, but I don't really know what. Like, make it more like spotty. I don't know. Make it just here for like a little bit, and then here for like a little bit. I don't know. Blue? I mean, yeah, it's... I kind of tried to emulate and exaggerate the tint, since we did go for like a slightly bluish hue with the skin color, and I wanted to kind of exaggerate that a bit for the mini. That's basically the reason. Maybe. I mean, is it really that blue? I think it's fine, especially contrasted against the green and, you know, beige of the shirt. I think it's okay. We definitely do still need to kind of figure out something for the hair. Hmm. Okay, yeah, maybe we can lighten it up a little bit. Though, obviously lightening it up if we bring like the bluish further into, you know, the orange yellowish of a skin tone, that would just basically mean making it greener. But I guess so be it. And then just kind of leaning in a bit further into the gray. I really struggle to see like maybe a little bit of a difference here. Well, no, he's not really that that palish white. He is actually pretty, like, there is definitely a blue, he doesn't have like a bluish skin, but it is very subtle, so I guess you're right on that account. Yeah, that's kind of the idea. Though, yeah, I did want to kind of exaggerate the blue for the mini, since, you know, that's usually how it goes, especially since we don't really have that much space to work with. But yeah, maybe this is better. I can't tell that much of a difference, but maybe. I am, after all, colorblind, so I guess I have to kind of learn to defer to other people's judgment there. Right. So that would be that. Where's the logo? Okay, so I'd say let's add in let me just copy this, put it in here, then delete, so I already have the blending type down. And then following the lines here. That's right, that's true. That is true. But yeah, I do think this is an overall improvement. Even if the hair is still looking a bit off. But then again, that too is kind of accurate. Authentic to how it looks in-game. So I guess maybe I shouldn't... Then honestly, we don't really have to do much more than that. Oh, and then one thing I was kind of considering... it's a bit strong at the moment. Hold on, let me just... that's too much. Gone. Like so. Isn't that like a capstone feature of the Necromancer Wizard, that you can go into like Lich mode? Or am I confusing that with another class? Maybe that was the Necromancy Warlock class. There's so many Necromancy classes. So this would be shadows except for Astarion. It does kind of look like there's something lacking. What we could do... Hold on, oh. Wait. Where? Okay, no, this is the correct layer. One thing we could kind of do is just have, like, a shadow for the base. Like this. This looks a lot better. Yeah, honestly, I'm kind of tempted to keep it like this. And then my, like, second idea would be to go with that idea of the distorted shadow. So, to have, like, a shadow that kind of goes like this, or something like that. And maybe even add like a reddish hue. No, that's too much. Like a reddish hue to it or something. Nah. Oh, one thing I just realized. We're missing the white outline on Lae'zel. I was wondering why she didn't pop properly. That's gonna be the very bottom. Gonna have to be pretty careful here. Something like this. Go. There. Should we also add more white outline around the flames? Yeah, honestly... Although, hold on, no, that should go... If we're gonna separate the flame on separate layers, that should also be a separate layer. Hmm. Yeah. Unfortunately, one thing I am noticing now is that, unfortunately, the color of the flame does match the color of the Baldur's Gate 3 logo pretty exactly, which means there's a lot of problems here with making it stand out. Might actually end up switching the places of Shadowheart and Lae'zel. Although, would that really fix it? Because then it's still... It would be better, at least. But yeah, that's gonna have to be, that's gonna have to wait for some other time. Oh yeah, one thing I just remembered, I did want to kind of... Yeah, I just did, because I did want to kind of further pursue the idea of having... Oh, wait. Oh, also, I just remembered, we did end up transforming the minis so that they're a bit bigger. Oh, wait, what the hell? Something... For some reason I forgot the ear here. I mean, the tadpole itself isn't really purple, it's just... I wanted it, to kind of pop out a little bit more against, the mask and, you know, the background. So I decided to give it a purple glow, since that's usually the color associated with Mind Flayer Psionics, if I remember correctly. And yeah, to kind of make it stand out more, though. I might actually... where is it? Figure... So many layers I need to... Why is that? Oh, right, because... Give it a bit more of a clear white outline here. That might also just help. Well, as clear as you can with, admittedly somewhat flawed... Sketchwork, there we go. Yeah, well, I don't think I've ever seen a happy tadpole, so... Though I do kind of want it to be attention-grabbing, because if we zoom out, that thing really is pretty small. So... I do kind of want there to be attention directed towards the tadpole, because otherwise it's just gonna get swallowed completely. Though, I may kind of lessen this a little bit. But to the point that I want to mention earlier, I'm very much still toying with the idea of having these sort of ephemeral psionic strings like coming from the heads of the characters and going towards the tadpole. I'm just wondering this, and then no, I think that's too much visual. It's just too much on top, sadly. Because it does give it even more of a, tentacle look, the tadpole, which obviously... Yeah, I was kind of considering switching that out with something like, one of my ideas was a hand kind of... where best oh yeah, and then obviously also that needs to be accounted for. Huh, whatever. I would have assumed that this being above the transform mask means it's not affected by it, but I guess not. It could do purple string on the floor leading to the player, half hiding. Pearl, you mean... Ah, okay. So, like, basically... Like, if we had, like, a... Hold on. Huh? What's this not? Is this the wrong... Properties, normal. Why is this not... Oh, there we go. If I had like something here and then... Yeah, Maybe, but I don't know. I'll have to think about it. Because I do kind of like the way, all these strands like coalescing to a point does already kind of look like tentacles. So you could definitely do something like that with like a Mind Flare head, and then since they already have 4 tentacles, there's basically like the tentacles of the Mind Flare face going out and turning into the strands connecting to each of the minis. But yeah, I'll have to ruminate on that. But I mean, on the plus side, we'll have plenty of opportunities to revisit this one as we update it, as our party changes. So, like for example, I also still want to add some more dice here on this side. But yeah, with this hand, my idea was kind of to change it. I'm not going to do it today, but maybe some other time. Was to kind of change it so that it's not holding dice, but kind of in the process of throwing like a pair or 1 die in the air. So the idea being, how would I put it best? The idea kind of being that it's like a hand that's... Honestly, the position of the hand, the pose of the hand would be pretty similar, but kind of the idea being of like throwing like a pair or a singular die up and down from the palm of the hand, and currently being in the process of throwing it up, so the die kind of hovers here in the still frame. Or just one thing could also be just having like a die between the fingers, but then that would probably be too similar to this. Perhaps, I don't know. Anyways, I think I'm happy leaving it off like this for now. So I'm just gonna save that. And then I don't... hold on. I was gonna say we were probably not gonna do much work on the emotes today, but one thing I did want to do, which I've forgotten to do thus far, I wanted to, hold on, make a version of this emote without the smoke, and then make both of them available in the Discord, so that we can kind of compare the two in action. So let me just do that as a last bit for today. 560 times 560. There we go. File, export, gun2.png. There we go, that should do that. There we go. And then, where is it? So this means we have, yeah, both this one and this one. So I can make both of those available in the Discord, and then we can kind of see which of them end up looking better in use, because I definitely do think that the smoke, if you look at it from like a medium distance, the smoke kind of adds, is kind of a good tell that it's a gun, but from even further away, I kind of, you know, like, it might end up hurting the, like, overall, what's the composition, I guess, of the emote a little bit, because, without the smoke, it kind of has a good bit of negative space here, which, can help the clarity. But yeah, we'll have to see it in use. Yes, pistol duels at at sunset or at dawn, I think was the, like, obviously high noon is the thing with Wild West, but I think pistols at dawn is like the cliche time to duel in Victorian times. But yeah, that's that'd be that. We already saved here, so yeah. Let me just very quickly see if there might be someone to raid. Let's see. There is someone currently doing art. Salty, let me see. How does... No, wait. Ugh. How does knocking work again? No. No. Okay, forget it. I'm not figuring out how that works today, so... I'm just gonna call it then. Hold on. Okay. Well, the time has come for us to acknowledge an ending. It has been my pleasure to be your host tonight, and if you enjoyed the broadcast, be sure to perform those rites of appeasement to the mad gods of the algorithm that you all know. Hope to see you all again soon, specifically on Saturday, where we'll continue our journey towards Baldur's Gate. If you want to be informed on future broadcasts, be sure to join our Discord server, the Lighthouse. Hold on. There we go. Wonderful. Where there's, I might add fully optional notifications for future broadcasts, and also whenever I decide to actually release a new art piece. But in the meanwhile, I hope to see you all again soon, and safe travels, and have a nice night.